I wanted to make this short video to talk about the quality of the answers that you should work for when you're asked to research a job or career. Some of the answers I'm seeing are really short, and that may mean you're trying to get caught up or you're not spending enough time on it. So I thought it would be good to show you a little more of an example about what's expected when questions are asked about, what a job is like or how you prepare for it or what the salary is, that sort of thing. Because in this class, we're doing a lot of research like that, and I want to get you used to taking really good, high quality notes so your work can be better. All right. Well, this document I think will help us. So, the first thing to clarify is in some of these assignments, you're being asked for a job title. And some of you are not interpreting this correctly. A job title is a specific job. So it could be like a plumber, like um, a restaurant manager. In this case, I have an example of an investigative journalist. So this is not where you'd put, you know, entrepreneurial or investigative. That's like a career cluster. When it asks for the title of a job, make sure you pick a specific job. Now, the next question that sometimes causes issues is when it asks what sorts of things a person does with this job. So here I want to point out that you should explain what their day-to-day job is like. So in this example that I'm starting here, if you're picking an investigative journalist, what do they do each day? I wrote down some ideas and I just kind of made this stuff up. So you should definitely research using some of the tools we've given, things like MCIS or ONET, some of those things that we've been learning about where you can put jobs in and you can find out a lot more information about them. So when you're describing what sorts of things a person does, you should write several sentences. For an investigative journalist, they're probably given assignments, things that they need to investigate, stories that maybe their editor or their manager would give them. They're going to go out, they're going to interview people, they might work with a photographer, or they might even take their own pictures, depending on how big the news company that they work for is, or maybe they're working for themselves, so they take their own pictures. Maybe they're going to look and do research in a library. They're going to be reading about the history of something and how that came to be. They might work with the police or other law enforcement, especially if they're investigating something that was maybe criminal behavior. They might be out in the community talking to people, looking around a neighborhood, visiting places where this story took place. They might then write the story and they might share it in an article or a blog, or maybe they're going to make like a video story or something. So that's what we're looking for. Really specific information about what that person does. So make sure your answers are several sentences. I would say at least 3 sentences that describe, maybe more. And then the question, how do you prepare for the job? That comes up a lot. And so you should have, again, 3 sentences or more. You should describe, what would they take in high school? What kinds of classes would they take? So like an investigative journalist, if we think of that example, they might be in the yearbook or they might be part of the student newspaper. They might take classes like that in communication or giving speeches. Lots of English classes. They might take, if they're really interested in science as part of their investigative part, or social studies or history, they could take, electives in science and social studies. So you really need to describe what do they do in high school, and you're in that point right now. So it really should be something that what would I do right now if I wanted to start getting ready for a job like this? Now, I also mention here, yeah, I already said some clubs. So, things like maybe yearbook or student council, those aren't necessarily clubs, but, or school newspaper, sorry. But maybe there's ways they could volunteer. Maybe you could really start, if you wanted to be an investigative journalist, you'd be watching the news and you'd be thinking about, what sorts of journalists do you really like? What do they do? What do you like about them? And then finally, you want to make sure, what happens after high school? Maybe for some jobs, the person would go into the military. So an example of that would be if I wanted to be a pilot, maybe I want to fly for, Delta Airlines or American Airlines or Southwest Airlines, whatever it is. I might want to go into the military and be in the Air Force first. So, some jobs, military is a really good choice if you're to go to your career and that job. Maybe for some jobs, college. So let's say you want to be, a software engineer and write coding and programs. Well, you could get an engineering degree. Or maybe there's like a quick boot camp, a couple week or month boot camp where you can learn about, like, again, if it's computer science or something, maybe you can learn about coding or creating apps. But what do you do after high school? There's other things called trade schools or community colleges, and we'll be learning more about these, in the last month or so of our course. But you probably already know about some of those. Apprenticeships is kind of when you get to try something ahead of time, and you're learning on the job. So when you're asked, how do you prepare for the job? Make sure you write a few sentences about the different things you do in high school and beyond. All right. And then this last one, and this came from an assignment where, again, it was a recent assignment. I think it was the top 5 one. But what does somebody do? What do you get paid in this job in Minnesota or around the country? Sometimes Minnesota pays more. So, like in healthcare, I know a lot of healthcare jobs. If you are in Minnesota, you might get paid more than if you were down like in the southern US or something. So, again, we have tools like MCIS. You can log in there via Clever. We've used ONET. You can look that up online. We've had some already assignments where you look at that and other sources. Some websites like ZipRecruiter or Glassdoor or LinkedIn, you'll learn about these. If you don't know, you can look for them, but they'll give you like what salaries can be paid for different jobs. So you should, share what's the average salary in Minnesota. Um, you know, do you start out at one pay and then as you get more experience, hopefully your pay goes up? So, you might mention that too. So, the last thing I want to mention before I close this video is sometimes you're also asked a question about what the outlook is for this job. And the outlook means, like, in a year or maybe in 5 years or 10 years, is this job going to be still important, or are there going to be less and less of them? So an example is this. If you really want to work, if you really love working like retail, like you've seen stores like Target, Walmart, grocery stores, Hy-Vee, Cub Foods, whatever it is, you have to know that there's changes there. Like if you look, there's more and more places where people check out without a cashier. So maybe that job's going to change. So if you're going to manage the payment systems in retail, you have to know that that job is changing. People, I don't know that anybody says when they're in high school, I want to be a cashier all my life. Maybe some of you do, and that's great. Maybe you love working with people and that. I knew a wife of a doctor who she really wanted to work at McDonald's just because she loved being with people. She didn't need to work to earn money. She just loved working hard and loved interacting with people. So maybe that's you. And I don't want to say that's bad. That's great. So, that's my point. Some jobs are changing, some are really growing. Like there's a real high need for nurses right now. And so, if you're a nurse, you're going to be asked to pick up lots of extra shifts. They're probably going to give you shift bonuses, and your pay could be really good because the need for that is growing as, our medical facilities are really, really in need right now, and our population of people is getting older and older. So, anyway, I'll stop there, but make sure my main takeaway is this. Make sure that you are answering completely. Just one sentence little answers, even 2 sentence little answers are not good enough. You want to describe things. When it says describe, make sure that you put some detail to your answers. Thank you.